Hello everyone, I want to show you automation. Now, automation comes from, I don't know if you remember or you've seen this in videos or anything, but the big old mixing consoles that you see in studios, so the massive mixers, had something called automation on the faders, where a producer or an engineer was able to move the faders. So if I just bring up my fader here, so on the by pressing F3, they're actually able to move these faders around, and what they called ghost faders, but basically they wrote the automation in so they could press right and they could actually put fade ins, fade outs, or actually ride volume as they went. So almost like a compressor, almost, if you wanted to, you could actually write when the vocalist sang and sang loud as a peak, they could actually ride this down. So that's called automation. And they could set it for projects, so that you could come into a studio and they'd say one band was working, or one band was working on an album, they wanted to go to the next set of tracks, so they went to the second track of the album. They could use this thing called recall, and what it would do, all of these faders would like magically move around and set to what they were been programmed in previously. And of course in the day this was fantastic, you know, it was like magic happening. But of course now with digital audio workstations, we've all got automation at our fingertips, so it is a really handy tool for producing. Now, there's a few ways of getting automation. I'm just going to show you in the mixer. So this, in our last video, you know, we were looking at amp rack, so we're looking at ways we could use amp rack. With this, what we're going to do is take the 4 recorded sounds, but perhaps if we look at the first, we'll solo the first one perhaps first. Let me just centralize this as well, because you know we pan them hard left and hard right. So I pressed F3 for the mixer, and I'm just going to press C over the panner, and that will centralize it. So now when I play, it's just that one distorted guitar part, and that's all we need to look at first of all for automations. But say I wanted this to fade in as it went. One way you can do this is called read-write automation in Cubase. So you've got them down here in the mixer itself, and you've got them on the left hand side as well. I'll show you these as well. But basically, a green is a read and red is write. So if I wanted to write in information, so that's just down the bottom there. If you hover over the top, actually, it's just showing me there, it says write automation. I can actually write this in. So if you've got a mouse, I'm on a laptop, so the mouse isn't the best for writing automation, but we'll try it anyway. But if I was to play the song and put write automation on, any of these changes will be done in the timing I'm doing, so in real time as I'm working through. Now we can also look at writing automation using the controller lane, but let's try the first one. But I just want to show on the inspector as well. Here you've got the read write again. It's probably clearer to see on here than my mixer, but once you write, it automatically does read. But of course once you take it off write, it will still have read on, because it's still going to read the information you've made. So for basic information, if you wanted to just do a volume changes using the mixer, you can do it here. It's not only volume changes, you can use automation, so read and write, for any EQ changes. So you could do a filter sweep. You could use it for panning if you wanted it to automate a panning technique. But I thought what we'd do, if we looked at automation for volume, and then perhaps as we used VST amp rack to tie in with that, let's call up a wah-wah effect. Because a wah-wah is a continuous sort of seesaw motion sweeping through the frequencies, I thought that could be quite a cool one to look at, and you can actually visually see the wah moving, hopefully, and we can also look at the lane as we write it. So anyway, first of all, we've just soloed one guitar one. Oh no, we haven't. We have now. So we solo guitar one. I'm just going to press F2 to get transport. Let's take this back to the beginning. I'm just going to show you how we can write in the automation using the fader to start with. So I'm going to write and press spacebar. So I wanted this to go down in volume, but then come back in. And then I'm going to stop that, take right off, so that was the red, go back to the beginning. Fingers crossed this is fader's going to move by magic. There we go, and that was the writing we did, that was the automation we made. This is how it always used to work, you know, they would actually manually move these faders with the hands. But of course, there's room for error in these. Often hear stories, of course, of people making errors and it actually ending up in the final mix because it actually turned out very well doing it that way. But with a DAW, you can actually see a controller lane. Now to get these lanes, so we know this is the one we affected because we've only got one track working at the moment. So I'm just going to take him back to the beginning. And then it's just here. So you see on your track, obviously these are very big at the moment because usually a track will look like this. It doesn't matter the size, it's still there. As soon as you hover down the left hand side of your track, you'll get this thing that says ShowHide Automation. Now, if I click on Show, there it is, and there's our curve we made. Now, the beauty of using this now, it might, you know, I might have made a mistake, so I might have wanted the fade in to start at the beginning. So I could simply drag that down to 0. And now I can move, well, it's up to you if you want to move these, or you can just delete them if you wanted. And you can actually set a curve up. Now, Cubase 9, from what I read and what I've seen on the internet, is their automation curves and stuff, it's much better. So I am planning to get Cubase 9 over the next, well, hopefully over the next week, and so we can actually have a look at the new automation features in Cubase. Oh, sorry, 9. It's 9.5, isn't it now? In 9.5. But okay, so we know how to automate volume using the automation tool. So what we did originally, though, was to, used it manually on the fader. But say if we delete these, so delete, and then that's what we get. So this is now, we haven't got any automation going, and we can take all these off. So this is as basically as we started the project. I can now use this drop down anyway, and of course we've got no automation in here, but we can right click, we can either draw it in, or we can use the line tool to do straight lines, and we can actually draw in automation as you go. And again, if you want to make more points, you can by using the pencil tool and add more in if you wanted to, and so you can be really, you know, do quite sort of extravagant things with the automation. So now, here's my curve. We're going up, down, and back up. So, and of course you can maximize this out if you really want to see it, minimize it down afterwards, and you can even hide it. It's still going to work even when it's hidden. So that's automation. I'll tell you one thing it's really good for, actually. So let's take right off. I'm not worried about it on there at the moment. So now that's just overwritten it. So it's still there if I want to put it back on. So I can just put right on, but at the moment I've just bypassed that. On the master channel, you can actually do write your automation down there. So you could actually do a fade out. That's what I mean to say. So on your master channel, use the draw tool and just fade him down as you go. So that's another way of doing. That's a good way of getting fade outs. And again, don't forget you can, if you wanted to, visually do this. So if you really felt like you wanted to use the mixer, by all means go. It would be the stereo out. It's exactly the same function. Read write. As the track's playing down, just slowly bring that fader down, and you can do it that way. So there's two ways. So you've got the controller lane, or you've got actually using the mixer. But going back to what I mentioned previously, just before I go, I'm going to look at using the wah-wah. So that's like the wah-wah effect in the amp sim. So in amp rack, let's put this on a bit more of a loop here, and then we're going to see how we can use automation to control effects. This can be really good on reverbs and things like that as well, because if you imagine you've got a vocalist and you don't use much reverb when they're actually singing, but at the end of the sentence or something like that you want to bring in a big reverb swell or something like that, you can draw in the mix of the reverb to come in, and we'll look at that as well. But let's look at it. I'm just going to put snap on so I've got that looping properly. Sorry. Let's look at it in using Amp Rack. So we know where we can get to by pressing the editor. Here's our Amp Rack. So we're only dealing with channel 1. Sorry, so let's just solo channel 1, and then the little E for the editor, and we're back in Amp Rack like we were before. So we looked at that before, and I'm going to have the wah on as a pre-effect, and there he is at the top. So he's there. Now, this is a great way if you're using an effects unit or you're using a different effects and you can't see the automation lane in Cubase. You know, when we do the drop down and it's not reading an automation lane, you can't see it. By using this read-write information, it will automatically create that for you. So it's a great way of finding it anyway, if nothing else. So, and I'll show you how to do that. So read-write, we've got read-write on here. So anything we now do, it could be a gain change, it could be a master fade, you know, a master controller on the amp change, anything at all we can do now in here, and as we're playing it, it's going to record this information that we do. So I'm going to switch the wah on, so that's the same as if we switch the pedal and it was on the floor. Okay, I've taken it back to the beginning, and what I'm going to do with my laptop mouse is just do a bit of a wah control. Let's have a look what we got. So play. Okay, I'm going to take write off now, which leaves read on. Take him back to the beginning. Hopefully, there we go. I'm now automating a wah on my track. Let me just turn. I don't know what. Oh. Sorry, I turned it down when we did the volume automation earlier. Okay, so now the wah is being controlled there. But say you were happy with it, but you want to make the odd change later on, and it's not necessarily a wah, this could be a reverb, a delay, or anything at all. You know where we had this hide and show automation? So we got the first one, which is volume, but if we drop down one more again, there you go, that's the automation we just made. So you know what I was saying about doing it manually like that? It's a great way, because Cubase then will put it higher up the priority list, because there are other things you can go through with automation, which we'll look at, but it brings it up the priority list basically. And you see, this is what I was doing with the mouse, and just doing that. But now there's nothing stopping you getting the draw tool and writing your own, or if you wanted to change just one section. And again, remember, this isn't just an effect on the wah. The only reason I chose a wah is because it's a very easy one to hear and visually see it on that seesaw moving. Try it on different effects. So now, and if I want to see that in action, let's have a look at Amp Rack, and there he is moving up and down. So that's automation. Good luck.